My name is John H., and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a drug addict and a compulsive gambler. In this Code Blue Big Book Study in Action seminar, we're going to go through the recovery section of the Big Book line by line, and we're going to do the action that our book tells us we must do to recover from the seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. This is based on the Canadian method used by the Golden Slippers, but I also borrow a lot of information from the Joe and Charlie Big Book Weekend tapes, as I feel their interpretation carries so much depth and weight. Sometimes I use their material verbatim, so don't get angry at me. Sometimes they can say things a lot better than me. This action and study is designed so that you can follow along in a 4th edition Big Book. Have your pen and highlighter ready. I don't claim to be any kind of Big Book guru or top 10 spiritualist. I'm just a simple drunk who was almost dead from the disease when a group of my heroes, some recovered alcoholics, took me through the book 5 years ago and saved my life. There's also some paperwork that you can download. Hopefully I'll get that online as well. Some from Joe and Charlie and some from the Golden Slippers. Please forgive any mistakes, errors, or misquotes you may detect. I'm sure there are many, for once again, I'm just a simple drunk trying to help other folks as I was helped myself. Thanks for listening. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Alcoholic.
Hey, John.
During the 1950s, a man by the name of Max C., now deceased, started a group in Winnipeg, Manitoba called the Golden Slippers. The group was a back to the basics of the Big Book kind of group, especially for those people who could not stay sober for any length of time. The group took a bunch of chronic slippers and walked them through the steps, taking the action exactly as laid out by the first 100 men and women who wrote the basic textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not your typical thanks for sharing kind of AA meeting, nor is it like any seminar. Participants are asked to do all 12 steps as laid out in our basic book. One or more of the people who've done this before will take you through the basic textbook using a dictionary published at about the same time as the book Alcoholics Anonymous to help us better understand the directions as they were written by the first 100 men and women. We ask every participant to commit to the entire process. Though we read and study the AA Big Book, this group is not limited to members of AA. We who have participated in these groups before have come to understand that these sessions make us much better sponsors. We can now lead people through the steps exactly as given to us by those who have gone before, unfettered and unchanged. In addition to being a boot camp for sponsors, we also feel this is especially valuable to those who have been through some sort of treatment or rehab and have been in effect left off at step 3 or step 5. Recovery requires that we do all 12 steps. We recover in AA by taking the steps, and if we don't take the action as described in our basic textbook, we might not recover. These study and action sessions will guide you through the steps precisely as the first 100 men and women laid them down. These are back to the basic sessions, accepting the simple kit of spiritual tools that's been laid at our feet. Let's open with the set-aside prayer. God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about sobriety, life, and you, so that I may be open to a new experience. Peace. All right, guys, you will be happy to know that this is the last session that we're going to talk about the 4th step on. So I hope everybody is chipping away at it. And what really, I honestly don't know why or how when I did this thing that I actually, for the first time in my life, I was able to follow instructions. And I actually I worked on the 4th step in between all these sessions. And when it came time, they assigned me that sponsor, and I went through with the 5th step. And that was the first time in my life that I was willing to do it. And funny enough, it worked. And somewhere in there, I lost my desire to drink alcohol. And I gained a lot of other things, among them some peace of mind, some serenity, and some goodwill. I think that, just a little bit, I think that alcoholism is a disease of perception, right? When I was thinking about the first 6 months that I was sober, I was working at my job. And I was sure that my boss had it out for me. That everybody I worked for, they were using me, they were abusing me, and they didn't deserve to have me. And my sponsor, luckily, he said, "Well, whatever you're thinking, don't quit your job." Right? Yeah, because I wanted to quit so many times. I thought they were all treating me badly. my sponsor would say, you know what, you treated that person over there pretty bad, right? And I said, the hell I did. They did stuff to me that was far worse. I didn't treat them bad. And he said, it doesn't matter what they did. I want you to go over to that person and I want you to make amends to them, right? Because I couldn't see what the hell was going on, right? So as it turns out, what I discovered later, or what I was taught, we act ourselves into better thinking and into better living. We do that by acting, right? We cannot think our way out of it. So we've got to do the actions. And when I perceive the world wrongly, my emotions are going to build up on me. They're going to build up on me. And I'm going to say, the world doesn't treat me right. I'm getting shafted here. I'm getting shafted there. My girlfriend did that. My boss did that. The person over there did that. And my emotions build up and they build up. And I either think that I'm too good, or I think that I'm a no good, lousy, rotten, so-and-so, right? But either whatever it is, I'm not seeing the truth. And my emotions build up and they build up. And all of a sudden I get a flat tire and that pushes me over the edge. It pushes me over the edge, and I go out and I get drunk, right? And it's because I'm playing the victim card, and I think I'm a lousy person, and I just snap, and then somebody says to me, John, why did you go out and get drunk? You just got your job back, things were going good, you just reassembled your friends and your family. Why did you ruin it all by going out and doing another bender? Why did you do it, right? And the only thing I can think of is, well, I got a flat tire, right? Well, that's the thing that pushed me over the edge, but the reason that I drank is because I could not perceive what was going on correctly, and I was perceiving things that were just building up my emotions until I couldn't take it anymore. So when I drink, incidentally, all my perceptions change. So for about the 2 or 3 hours when I'm tying one on before I black out, I'm back in control of things, but just for that little bit of time. The fourth step is the first big thing that we're really doing to try to discover the truth of things as they really are, right? This is the big one, and that's why this is so important, because we can start to see things as they really are. So I want to remember we said that resentments are incorrect judgment of other people. Fears are incorrect believing or incorrect perceptions, and the harms and the hurts that we do other people are incorrect treatment. So this is our first attempt to try to clear away some of that junk so we can actually see what's really going on. So today the first session we talked about resentments, the number one offender that pushes more of us over the edge than anything else. Last week we talked about fears, and today we're going to talk about the harms that we do other people. And it seems that we hurt people in the sexual arena more so than any other arena. I think it's closely followed by money, but the sexual arena is the big one, so they've got a couple of pages devoted to that in the book. One of my sponsors told me, and this isn't AA, it's his own opinion, he told me that he thought, sex is obviously necessary for the, for the human race to continue. And he thought that sex for uses other than reproduction or enjoyment, right, might be something different than what God intended, right? Reproduction and enjoyment. And you say, well, what else can you use sex for? Well, if you're anything like me, you can use sex to build your self-esteem, right? The more women I sleep with, the greater man I am, right? That was me in my teens, my 20s, and even into my 30s, right? You can use sex to take care of loneliness, right? You can use sex to buy a personal relationship when you're lonely, right? So that's the social instinct. The first one to build a self-esteem. The second is the social instinct. You can use sex to gain security, right? I mean, let's look at somebody who marries Donald Trump, right? I mean, they've got a nice, secure life from then on. You can use sex for revenge. They did it to me. By God, I'm going to get even. I'm going to go out there and have my own affair, right? So that's using sex for revenge. You can use sex to force your will on another human being, right? You're not getting any till you come around to my way of thinking, right? Doesn't work too well for men, but it works for women, right? So I kind of discovered that for me, I use sex mainly like when I'm running around using it to build my self-esteem. So I'm out there cheating on my girlfriends. I'm doing this and that, and I kind of thought I was just a dirty, rotten, lousy guy, right? When you do this, I kind of realize that I'm not a dirty, rotten guy. I'm a sick guy. I'm sick, right? Because I really don't. I can't see the truth of things as they're going. So this was kind of an eye opener for me. So that's just a little intro. We are now going to go to page. Everybody got their highlighters? And let's see where we are here. We are on page 68. Okay, so we're on the bottom paragraph, right? So we had right where it says that once we commence to outgrow fear, we got the line across. It says end of fear. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about sex and harms, and I think we're gonna have an easy day today, and then next Tuesday, we're gonna have kind of an easy Tuesday. We're gonna talk about the fifth step. We're gonna get some basic instructions. We're gonna look at some things that might happen to us, and hopefully you guys will be going out and doing your fifth step anytime after next Tuesday. Right, and it's real important that between next Tuesday and then the Tuesday when we meet again and we're on the sixth step, that you get your fifth step done. And funny enough, if you guys haven't been working on it, honest to goodness, you can sit down and you can get it done in 2 or 3 hours. And if you've just been putting it off, if push comes to shove, just get me 10 names of people that you hate. Get me 10 fears, 10 fears of things that are just really afraid of, and get me 10 people or institutions that you've harmed. It's the 10-10-10, because we got to get something out, right? We got to look at something, and we'll begin to see the truth. And we can always come back and do a more thorough fourth and fifth step later. We just want to get the big stuff out at the beginning. So page 68, bottom paragraph. Where's my pen? Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we don't have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct, right? So we're going to stay out of it, right? So let's highlight the next 2 lines. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? Just those 2 little lines. So they're going to give us just a little bit of advice here, right? So now this is the third part of our fourth step, and I call it sex and harms, right? So they're going to give us, this next paragraph is fourth step instructions, right? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down paper and we looked at it. Okay, so next to that you can write fourth step instructions, and then where it says selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate, right next to that little line write fourth column. Right? The fourth column is the exact nature of our wrongs, right? In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life, right? Highlight the next 3 lines. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? Okay? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. Now that last sentence that I just read, we ask God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. You can write next to that first sex prayer. They're going to give us 3 sex prayers, right? So, you can say something like, God, please help form my ideas and my thoughts about sex, and please help me to live up to them, right? So we're asking God for some direction here. I mean, if we do just that one prayer before we get into something that we shouldn't, that's going to probably save us a lot of heartache, right? If we ask God's help. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, right? Highlight, nor to be despised or loathed, right? So we're not going to despise them, we're not going to loathe them. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. Okay, so we're going to highlight to the end of the paragraph again. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. Okay, so now those are going to be some 9-step instructions, so we're not necessarily going to worry about those right now. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, underline, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. That's the second sex prayer, right? So we've got a second sex prayer there. The right answer will come if we want it. So the first sex prayer, God, please form and mold my thinking, my ideals about this sex subject, and please help me to live up to them. The second sex prayer, God, what should I do about this particular matter? Right? This is bothering me. I don't know what I should do. I'm involved with this woman. What should I do about this specific matter, God? Right? Now, obviously, above it where it says we must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. Right next to that, though, in big letters, right, talk to sponsor. We're not going to run out and do anything stupid. We are always going to bounce this off other people because, again, our perceptions are a little bit skewed at this point, and it's always a good idea to get somebody else's advice on it. So that's going to be talking to our sponsor before, so we don't run out, so we can feel better, but we might end up causing more harm to other people by revealing something that we did, because somebody else, more than one person was involved. So we have to be really careful. We don't want to run out and do something stupid just so we can get something off of our conscience, right? The right answer will come if we want it. So at the bottom of the page, we're going to write just 2 little things. Seeking approval from others can be a drug. Seeking approval from others can be a drug. That's when we're worrying about what other people think. Seeking approval from others can be a drug. What will we do? Who will we hurt? Right? We've got to think of these things. Seeking approval from others can be a drug. What will we do? Who will we hurt? Right? I'm running around there using. I'm not worried about any. I'm not worrying about who I'm hurting. I'm just worrying about what feels good for me. Seeking approval from others can be a drug. What will we do? Who will we hurt? God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with other persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. I mean, if I'm running around in AA and I'm asking 6 different people about some specific situation, I'm probably going to get 6 different answers. So, I mean, I don't know, running around in AA and asking people for sex advice, I mean, we're all crazy. I don't think that's a very good idea. So you've got a sponsor that's been sober for a while, you're working with them, you got respect for that person, you see how they're living their life, we are going to talk to a sponsor. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Right? I mean, that's like a sponsor's nightmare, right? You're just working with somebody, they've been sober 3 months, and all of a sudden they say, hey, they call you up, I met someone! That's like, no! Right? Because the relationships are just, that's in early sobriety, I'm taught that that's just not a very good idea. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and on our motives. Underlined at the end of the paragraph. if we are sorry for what we have done, right? Because you know what? We're human, and because we're human, we're going to make mistakes, right? If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. So, you know, I sell tile to this, he's a tile setter, he's a contractor, and his wife had been sober for 20 years. 20 years she'd been sober, right? She relapsed, and she couldn't get it back, man. Couldn't get it back. She's been through, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 treatments in the last 3 years, and she is just, I mean, that the family is ripped apart to the very shreds because she can't get it back. Now this woman, she's about 50. She's very, very good-looking woman, right? She went to a meeting, I think, and I mean, I'm not going to say where she went, but she went to this place. It's an Alano club, and she was getting hit on. She got hit on by like 4 different guys there, and she felt so uncomfortable that she did not go back, right? So here these people are this poor woman who's coming here for help, and all of a sudden these guys are hitting on her. It's unconscionable, right? So I mean, when people are here for help, we're going to give them help, and we're not here to get a girlfriend, a boyfriend. I mean, that is not why we're here. I mean, when her husband told me that, I was just heartbroken about it. She didn't show up. She didn't go to meetings. She went out and relapsed again. I mean, it was just awful. To sum up about sex, okay, so we're going to highlight the next sentence because this is the third sex prayer. Third sex prayer. We earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. Okay? That's the third sex prayer. Now, if we got a questionable situation and we're talking to our sponsor about it, and we're praying, and then we're listening for some answers, from God, I think hopefully we're not gonna be doing something stupid. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves, the harder into helping others, right? Whenever you're having trouble with anything, our book tells us we go out and help another alcoholic, and that will always save the day, right? Always save the day. Highlight the next sentence as well. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. And guys, that also works when we're feeling resentful, when we're feeling full of fear. That works for everything, right? We go out and we help another person. It quiets the imperious urge, right? When to yield would mean heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot, right? It's telling us again, we've got to get all this on paper. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. Now, don't worry about that word analyzed, right? You can underline it, and off to the left, just write truth. That's all it means. We just want to see the truth about them, right? We have begun to comprehend their futility, underline futility, and their fatality, right? So they're telling us again that resentments are going to kill us, right? We're not going to get anything from us, and if we drink again because of them, we might die. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. Okay, now we're going to underline this next sentence. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, right, and women, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. Right next to that, write the word promise. Now, we haven't even done the 5th step yet. And remember, we had that wonderful promise about fear, that we're going to outgrow our fear. Now we've got another wonderful promise that we have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people, right? That doesn't mean we condone what they've done, right? That just means we want to be free of that anger and that tightness in our chest. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. If you read in this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. Okay? Highlight the next sentence. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. Right? I think it's so important to dive right into the fourth step when we come in here and we get sober, because if you're anything like me, once I've been sober for 4, 5, 6, 7 months, I'm thinking to myself, I got this. I'm kicking ass at work. I'm doing this. I don't need to do this crap, right? If I wait too long, I'm going to say I don't need to do this because I did it over and over. I always, once I get enough time, old self-will kicks in again and I don't have to do this work. Not me, right? So, that's why we've got to do this as soon as possible. Don't wait. Don't delay. So, if you have already made a decision, next to that, right, third step, an inventory of your grosser handicaps, next to that, right, fourth step, right? You have made a good beginning, right? It's just a beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Okay? So, we're going to write some things here. So, grosser handicaps, right? Do a little arrow and then just make a note that says, not everything, but get the big stuff out of the way. Not everything, but get big stuff out of way, right? Not everything, but get the big stuff out of the way. And that's why, this is, of course, I want everybody to be as thorough and as honest as they can, but if you haven't done a damn thing, I just want you to do 10, 10, 10 and meet with somebody for an hour and go over this stuff. Not everything, but get the big stuff out of the way. Okay, then we're going to write fear, put an arrow, future. Fear, arrow, is the future. Resentments, arrow, is the past. Resentments, arrow, is the past. And then I want you to write, I have a deadly disease. I must be totally honest. I have a deadly disease. I must be totally honest. And guys, even if we don't die, I'm pretty convinced that I was pretty close to death if I would have kept going. But even if we don't die, we might live for years in misery. And who wants to do that? I have a deadly disease. I must be totally honest. Fear is the future. Resentments is the past.
What? Can you?
Pardon?
What sentence?
Can you?
I have a deadly disease. I must be totally honest.
Okay.
And next to grosser handicaps, not everything, but get big stuff out of way. Fear, future, resentments, past. So now we're gonna write some more things. What are grosser handicaps? Question mark. What are grosser handicaps? Okay, I'm going to give you an A, B, C, D, and these are just the big ones, right? A is resentment. B, fear. C, guilt. D, remorse. What are the grosser handicaps? A, resentment. B, fear. C, guilt. D, remorse. What are the basic character defects that we looked at as the basic cause? What are the basic character defects that we've looked at as the basic cause? What are the basic character defects that we've looked at as the basic cause? 1, selfish. 2, dishonest. 3, self-seeking. 4, frightened. 5, inconsiderate. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, inconsiderate. This was a real eye-opener for me when I got to the fourth column and I saw the exact nature of my wrongs, right? That enabled me to take responsibility for the way that I've lived my life. And it also enabled me to say, my goodness, you know what? If I can change these things, my life's going to get a whole lot better. So what are the grosser handicaps? Resentment, fear, guilt, remorse. What are the basic character defects that we've looked at as the basic cause? Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, inconsiderate. And then you can write, from these stem all defects of character. Right? I mean, you can have a list a mile long if you want, but they all start with these things from our grosser handicaps.
You start there.
What are the basic character defects that we've looked at as the basic cause? Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, inconsiderate. Essentially, it's the fourth column on the board there. All right, the fourth column on the board. Everybody got that? Cool. Okay. So again, man, you know, I mean, if you say these prayers before you jump into something stupid, you know, a relationship with somebody, you say these 3 basic sex prayers, I think deep down, everybody's is going to kind of know what they should and should not be doing, right? Remember, it told us that deep down in every man, woman, and child is the idea of God. So we've got our own personal higher power that's in there. You can call it the conscience, the little voice, you can call it whatever you want, but it's in us, right? Very important we do that. So, you know, funny enough, this somebody else was sponsoring this guy, but a guy was in his 20s, and he came to me, and he said, John, my sponsor told me I wasn't allowed to have any sex the first year of sobriety. Is that right? Is that right, John? And I said, no, that's not necessarily true. I said, as a matter of fact, you can have all the sex you want the first year, and the second year you can have it with other people. All right, so a little levity. Please excuse me. Let's see here. So, you know, I see this again and again and again, and I see people go out and relapse, right? I see people sitting around here in AA, right? They're waiting to do their 4-step until they get better, right? So that they can do a better job on their 4-step. We can't do that. We've got to get rid of these grosser handicaps now, right? Just get the big ones out, and the ones we don't get out, we're going to be inventorying the rest of our lives, right? We got steps 10 and 11 that we're going to cover, that we're going to use, and if we do 10 and 11 properly, we only got to do it just a few minutes a day, right? To keep ourselves clean. But we got to get rid of the major things that are going to kill us, the major things that are blocking us off from God, man. I can't tell you guys, when I'm angry all the time, God can't get through that. When I'm madder than hell at everybody, God's not getting through. When I'm terrified, I'm worried about John. This is going to happen to John. That's going to happen to John. Oh my God, right? God can't get through that either. And when I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, I am the worst son, the worst boyfriend, the worst employee, the things that God can't get through that crap either. So we've got to clear this stuff out. And once we clear it out and we begin to see the truth about the way we've lived our lives, God's going to come in and things are going to start to get better right away. And once again, man, when I those 6 months, my first 6 months sober, 6, 7, 8 months, I woke up every morning, I was mad, I was full of fear, and I wanted to drink every single morning. And somewhere in the middle of this 4th and 5th step promise, I don't know exactly, or steps, I don't know exactly where, but one day I woke up and it's like, oh my God, I halfway through the day and I remembered that I didn't want to drink that day. It's like, what's going on? You know, you wake up a couple of weeks later, I woke up and I wasn't full of anger and I wasn't full of fear, and I didn't think I was the worst person on earth. So magic stuff happens to us somewhere when we're doing this work. So and I can't, you know, not looking back now, there's no emotional problem that I've ever had or that I ever will have that doesn't resolve around one of these things. I'm madder than hell. I'm scared to death. I've done something I shouldn't, and I'm eaten up with guilt, shame, and remorse. Boom! Those guys are the ones that are gonna kill me. So, I kind of another little joke here that I read this book for years. Somebody pointed out that all the information on sex is on page 69. I don't know why that's about. So let's see here. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to run a few columns, right? We ran resentment columns, we ran fear columns. Now I'm going to run some harms columns, right? So let me grab a pen and get up here. Let's see what I got here. What goodies do I got today here?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Are these
only sexual harm?
No, all harms. All harms.
Okay.
Yes, all harms. Yep, and I'm going to cover. Most of mine are I'm going to cover today, or just I'm going to do a couple that aren't. These are all harms, right? Like I stole money from my father, right? I got into a fist fight with my brother, right? And my mom tried to break us up, right? And I threw a punch at my brother and I broke my mom's wrist, of all things, right? I was so full of anger. I stole money from my father. I stole money from an employer in the mid-'90s to get a crack dealer off my back. He was going to kill me. I've got all kinds of ones. So I'm just going to cover the first one I'm going to talk about is Tammy Scray. I'm going back to the early '80s, man. I honestly think that this woman or girl back then would have been the love of my life. We had a date and we went to the state fair in Vermont and just had a great time. You know, we went off and we did all kinds of stuff. But I had made arrangements with my friends to go out drinking afterwards. So we were probably 30, 40 miles from where she lived. She was only 17. And I took her to a McDonald's and I called a cab for her, but I left her there because I had to go meet my friends to drink, smoke pot, and do cocaine, right? So I left her there. The cab never came. She was there for hours, and she finally had to call her father to come and get her, right? Obviously that was over, right? I mean, any relationship in my whole life, it was, I always did something. But so I just kind of I left her at McDonald's, right? So, let's see, where's my sheet here? Don't tell me I don't have my sheet. I know I got one up here. So I'm going to get out my definition sheet here, if I have one. Here it is, my glossary, right? So, my social instinct. So I want to look, okay, so I treated her awfully, right? So, my self-esteem, what we think of ourselves, high or low. Oh my God, after that I found out what happened. Oh my God, my self-esteem was in the toilet, right? Personal relationships. Our relations with other human beings and the world around us. We got to use this when we're running the columns because we have to become acquainted with these terms and what they mean, so we can see how our resentments and our fears and the harms we've done others. We got to see what part of self and how our self is affected by it. So our relations with other human beings and the world around us, not the person that you harm. Other people found out about it, and my personal relationships took a big hit, right? Security instinct, money, property, housing, probably not. Emotional, based on need for another person or persons. That was affected gravely because she never spoke with me again. Sex instinct. Acceptable sex relations or sex lives is accepted by society, God's principle or our own principles. I'm going to put this one down as enjoyment, right? Not to have kids. But yeah, that was affected because she never had anything to do with me again. Hidden sex relations are sex lives that are contrary to society, God's principle or our own. In this case, no. But in other cases, when I had girlfriends and I cheated on them, yes. Ambitions, your plans or great desires for the future. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition. Looking back, she was, I think I just kind of blew the love of my life there, right? Security ambitions, your plans to gain material wealth, to dominate, depend on, maybe not. Sexual ambitions, your plans regarding your sex lives in the future. Yeah, that was affected, right? So what's the exact nature of my mistakes, my wrongs, faults, mistakes, shortcomings here? Was I selfish? I'm going to say, yeah. Of course I was selfish. Was I dishonest? This particular night, I didn't tell her that I was going to abandon her to go drinking with my friends. I just wanted to get her there and, do what I wanted to do with her. Self-seeking. What I want matters more than what she wanted. Frightened. Well, after I found out about it, I thought her dad was going to kill me. Right? Inconsiderate. Oh yeah, you bet I was. Did I fail to consider how she felt, her wants, her needs, her beliefs, and how of course I did. Boom. On these, when I'm harming people, I'm almost running the board on these babies right here. So, at the time, what was I, what did I think about at the time? It's like, I called a cab, the cab didn't show up. It's not a big deal, right? That's what I thought. I'm gonna do one more sexual one here. Karen, Karen was a girl when I'm out there doing cocaine and I'm drinking, and you know, if something better did, I was not attracted to this woman at all, right? And if something good came along, I wouldn't call her. But if it's 2 in the morning and nothing came along, I'm calling her, right, to use her for sex, right? So 2 in the morning, can I come over? I've got drugs, you know. I mean, so yeah, I used her for sex, right? So social instinct, self-esteem. Well, she used to come into my place of business, right? And again, I was not attracted to her. And when she did that, my self-esteem took a hit. But because she always said yes, my self-esteem was positive. So basically, my self-esteem is being affected both negatively and positively, right? We got to look at both of those. Did this relationship I had with her affect my other personal relationships? Our relations with other human beings, not her. Yeah, because she wanted more than me coming over, you know, once a week in the middle of the night or twice a week. So she would show up to where I drank, and she would show up to my place of business and cause commotions. Absolutely affected personal relationships. Material, wanting money, property, clothing. I mean, I always, you know, I'd give her some money if she needed it. I'd give her drugs and booze, but I'm not going to check it. Emotional, based on our need for another person or persons. You know, I was dating somebody else when she found us and kind of created some havoc, so I'm gonna check that one. Sex instinct, our sex lives as accepted by society, God's principles, our own principles. You know what? I wouldn't necessarily go out and try to work on a real relationship with somebody that I actually liked and found attractive, because I always had her in my back pocket. So it affected my acceptable sex relations. Hidden sex relations. Well, the whole thing I was doing was hidden with her, right? Ambitions, social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige. Maybe I'll check that, maybe not. She did bust into my place of business and cause scenes now and again, so that was actually affected. My security for the same. And the sexual instinct for the future, absolutely, because again, she would track me down when I'm on a date. All kinds of things would happen. So now, what's the exact nature of my mistakes and my wrongs with this relationship that I had with Karen here, right? Well, let's see here. Was I selfish? You bet. Was I dishonest? I would tell her anything, right? You bet I was dishonest. Was I self-seeking? What I want mattered more than what she wanted? My needs matter more than yours? My feelings or comfort comes first? Hell yeah. Frightened? I was always frightened, you know, when I'm sober going about my business, or you know, and she'd show up. I was frightened of her. Was I inconsiderate? Did I fail to consider how she felt, her wants, her needs, her beliefs, and how I affected them? Yeah, she wanted more. She wanted a relationship, right? So yeah, I'm checking all of those guys again. So here I just kind of did 2, you know, sexual ones, and I think that when you're going to look at it, it's going to be pretty easy when you look at your past relationships. It's going to be pretty easy to run these, I think. Let's do another one. Let's do a regular one. Here, back in the mid-90s, I was working for this company, and I owed a crack dealer a lot of money, right? And this guy, they sent somebody after me to my place of business. So I ended up stealing merchandise from my company so that I wouldn't be killed, you know? So let's see here. Social instinct, my self-esteem. What we think of ourselves, high or low. Well, yeah, man, I thought I was horrible. My God, I did that. These people, man, they treated me nice, these people at this company, and that's what I do to them. Personal relationships, our relations with other human beings in the world around us. I got to tell you, when I'm talking with the owners of this company after having done this, I'm not the same person. It absolutely affected and everybody I worked with. And not only that, but all my friends. I was not the same person with what I did rolling around in my head. I'm the worst thing on earth. All of my personal relationships were affected, man. Security instinct material. Oh, hell yeah, man. I mean, that I should have been fired if I would have been caught. Emotional. Based on our need for another person or persons. I mean, I distanced myself from a lot of people who work at that company because I didn't want anybody to find out about this. Sex instinct. Our sex lives is accepted by society, God's principle, or our own principles. I could easily check that because if I got a date with somebody and I got this rolling around in my head, I'm not going to be very good company, right? So I can check that one. Let's go to the future. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition. Yeah, that's all on the line on this one. All of it. Security, your plans to gain material wealth. All on the line, man. Sexual ambitions, maybe, maybe not. Your plans regarding your sex lives, either acceptable or hidden. So, the exact nature of my mistakes, my wrongs, my faults, my shortcomings. Let's see here. Selfish? Yeah, oh yeah. I'm stealing your money to cover my ass. Was I dishonest? Yeah, oh yeah. We lied about that inventory. You bet. Lied about that stuff. Self-seeking. What I want matters more than what you want. Hell yeah. Frightened. Am I frightened that I'm going to be caught? Terrified that I'm going to be caught, man. Inconsiderate, that I failed to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs. This was a company that was just trying to get up and running, and here I am stealing product. Yeah, I'm inconsiderate, man. So, all of those things, right? So, now, when we do these lists, right, and the funny thing that you guys are going to find out, and I mean, I didn't even put this together till I did my second one, but just about everybody on my resentment list, many of them anyway, they ended up on my fear list. I was afraid of them, right? And many of the same people ended up on my harms list. So I hated them, I was afraid of them, and I tried to give it to them, right? So, I mean, it's not uncommon that you're going to see the same names reappearing on all three lists. So, I mean, this is important. I mean, and I got the one where I was in a fight and I broke my mom's wrist. How about stealing money from your dad, right? I need drugs and alcohol bad enough that I'm stealing money from my dad. How's my self-esteem on that one? My God. How is that going to affect my personal relationships? I thought I was dirt. I mean, this affected all of the way. And then when we get to these, we're checking all of these babies, right? Now, some people are like, oh my God, I'm going through this, and this is, this is so bad. We're going to be praying when we're doing it, and if you're feeling bad or anything, call your sponsor and talk about it. But the ultimate result of this is that you're going to feel better. This is where we start to feel better. When we get this, we got to look at the truth of things as they really are, and once we see that, we can move forward from there. I'll never forget when I was on the night before I was going to do my second fifth step, and I remembered something I did in the blackout, man. And I thought it was over. This is it. I'm going to drink. I might as well drink now. There's no coming back from this, And when I went and I talked with my sponsor about it, he did worse, right? I mean, that was an eye-opener. He did worse, and he said, you know what? With what you're trying to do with your life now, God's going to forgive you because you're going out. You're trying to help other people. You're trying to clean up what you did in the past. God sees that, and God forgives you, man. So remember that if you start to get down on yourself, remember that God sees what you're trying to do, and He likes it. So don't think what I thought there. So So schedule your fifth step anytime between a week from Tuesday and the following Tuesday. This I'm gonna go over this real quick, and this was really hard for me to do, but I did it. My first inventory, but I think I did it wrong, but it helped me. Everybody got the guideline sheet? So we've done all these lists, right? So we're just asking for like a half a page, and what they want us to do is you see how we always work this way? By the way, whenever we do these lists, we always do column 1 all the way down, we do column 2 all the way down, then we do column 3 all the way down, and then we do this, because I don't like going from here to here to here to here, because you keep switching and your brain doesn't. It was really good for me, particularly when I got to column 3, because when I did column 3 for this one, and then I did column 3 for this one, and then for this one, I began to see patterns, and it's like, wow. And then when I did all of the column 4, I began to see patterns as well. So don't work them across. Just do 1 all the way down, list everybody, what did I do, and then do 3, and then do 4. So on these little summaries, they just want us to write a page or a half a page, and there's a few examples that I'm going to read. But instead of going this way, they want us to go this way. So they want you to take something where you were very, very selfish. Very, very selfish, and it caused a great resentment, right? So I mean, just for me personally, just to give you an idea, the IRS, where I'm claiming 10 deductions, right? Because I need my money for drugs and alcohol, right? I'm claiming 10 deductions, and then all of a sudden I'm madder than hell when I owe them all this money, right? So because of my selfishness, all of a sudden, and you work backwards. So you say the resentment, the selfish, how it affects you, and then ultimately how it started. So the IRS, I was remarkably selfish, and the end cause was I hated them because they wanted my money, right? So let's go to, let's just read it. Label the top of the paper with defect of character from column 4. Label either resentment, fear, or harm. Give description of the cause from column 2. State how the specific defect of character affected each column that was checked by column 3 by beginning each sentence, which starts because of my selfishness, right? And then you go across, and we'll read them so you understand. So let's look. Some of these examples are better than others. This first one isn't very good. The last one is tremendous. But selfish resentments, right? I am resentful at the city of Minneapolis, Bill B. and Dave A. The cause of the resentment is I had to fight to get a promotion that I felt I was clearly deserving of because of my seniority and qualifications. So this guy thinks he deserves it no matter what. It didn't matter who I harmed along the way. What did seem to matter to me was the money, less work, more power, and me getting my way. So what did the selfishness cost him, right? Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem was affected, because I wasn't willing to understand why they had a problem seeing that I was best for the job. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships were affected because I felt forced to step on some toes to get what I want. Because of my selfishness, my material security was affected because I thought I may have advanced faster or further had these things happened sooner or on my terms. Because of my selfishness, my emotions are affected because of the bad feelings I have for these people. Because of my selfishness, my social ambitions may have been harmed because I can't or don't trust myself at social events where I know there will be for fear of what I might say or do. So his selfishness, he'd see these guys, he'd get so angry he couldn't control himself. I can relate to that, man. My first 8 months of sobriety, I was afraid I wasn't going to get fired or arrested because I was such a volatile person. Because of my selfishness, my future security was affected due to the loss of money which I felt may hamper my ambitions. My retirement fund, my wages, mainly what I thought may have been affected. No matter what their part in this was, I took selfishness to an extreme. It was an obsession that helped create the resentment and emotions. Had I been less selfish, I may have been able to handle the situation differently with the same or better results. I would have been able to let go and move on. So this guy he wanted that money so freaking bad, right, that it affected his self-esteem, it affected his personal relationships, it affected all of these things, right? So all we're trying to do is we're trying to see how this character defect affects these basic instincts of life or the part of self. We've got a better one coming up here. Well, this one's okay. We're going to do a selfish fear now. I am fearful of bankruptcy. The cause of this fear is my staying home with the girls and my husband not making enough money. Right? Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem is affected because I think I can't buy and do the things I'd like to do for my family. I feel less than. She sees her friends going out. Maybe they got a lake cabin. We don't have it, man. I'm not as good of a person as them because we don't have the money. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships are affected because all I talk about is my lack of money. So therefore, I feel unable to do a lot with my friends. She's going out now. She's saying, my husband doesn't make any money. I can't do this. And God, my life is horrible, right? Because of my selfishness, my material security is affected because all I look at is what I think I can't do or can't have because of not having the money. Because of my selfishness, my security ambition is affected because I don't feel financially stable. Because of my selfishness, no matter how much money my husband made, it wouldn't be enough. I wanted more. I lost sight of faith in God that He would provide what was needed, right? So a lot of times we don't look at the things that we have, man. So, we got to, every morning you should think about some things that you're grateful for. Remember Eric, who was here, right? He got cancer. He lost his job. He ran out of money. He lost his house. And now when he's in town, he stays with me and I feed him. When he's not in town, he stays with his relatives. He's having the best time of his life, right? Because he's not selfish and he's not worried about the money, right? He knows that everything is going to work out okay, and it seems to be, right? I'd be terrified if I was in this situation, it seems. Now this one I like this one the best of all right here. This is a selfish harm. So because of this woman's selfishness, we're going to see how she harmed somebody. I harmed an old boyfriend, Rob. I feel that I harmed him because I stayed in the relationship for a year after I lost interest in him. I had put a lot of the money I had earned into the relationship. He kept assuring me that it wouldn't be long before he could pay me back and give me more than I could have on my own. I felt justified in staying with him, waiting for what I felt I had coming. My plan was to leave once I was paid back. So this gal is staying with a guy, having sex with him, that for a year after she knows that he's not the one because she wants her money back, right? My goodness. Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem was affected because I felt I was better than Rob. I felt I had to put more into the relationship than he had. I felt I was too good for him. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships were affected because I gossiped to my friends and family about what a loser he was. They in turn tried to talk me into leaving, which I had no intention of doing until I was paid back. This caused tension in my relationship with my family. Should have cut and run, man. Because of my selfishness, my material security instinct was threatened because I thought if I left when emotionally the relationship was over, I wouldn't get my money and I would start over with nothing. Because of my selfishness, my emotional security instinct was threatened because I was depending on him to pay me back. I wasn't working toward any arrangements for him to pay me back. I thought I needed to keep him emotionally locked into the relationship in order to get my money. We took turns emotionally dominating the relationship. Because of my selfishness, my acceptable sex relations were affected because I had trouble having any sex relations with him once my feelings for him had changed. Because of my selfishness, my hidden sex relations were affected because once my feelings for him had changed, I began to find that I was interested in other men. I flirted with them and led them on. I wanted to know that once I was single again, I could find men who would be interested in me. Because of my selfishness, my security ambitions were affected because I wanted to make sure I got the money. I needed to get an apartment and other things. I wanted to get started in my life without him. Because of my selfishness, my sexual ambitions were affected because I had to put them on hold until I got my money. I had no sexual ambitions with Rob. I took selfishness to an extreme. Rob's part could have changed if I hadn't been selfish. I didn't have to give him the money in the first place. My selfishness got in the way because I believed I would get more later if I paid then. Had I been less selfish, I would have kept the financial situation separate from the emotional situation. Instead, I used his feelings for me and was dishonest about my feelings for him to ensure payment. So man, that selfishness of this woman, she stayed in the relationship for a year. She talked about what a loser he was. And maybe she passed up a guy that she would have ultimately married, all kinds of things because she wanted to get her money back. So all they're and I know this is confusing. I didn't understand this at all. But all they're asking you to do, right? If you've got a selfish one, and all of a sudden you see that everything is checked, right? And it's more selfish than anything else, but everything is checked. All they want you to do is write a half a page about it. That's all. Right? Don't worry about it. When you see checks all across the page, just write a half a page about that one. Maybe do one for selfish, one or two. Do one or two for dishonesty, one or two where self-seeking was the worst, one or two were inconsiderate. And for me, my God, when I look at mine, I could pick any of them and do it. So they just want you to write it so you kind of see what's going on with that. So. Let me see here, just a couple more things and we'll be done. So, again, guys, just do the best you can, and I cannot stress that enough. We alcoholics tend to be perfectionists. You cannot be a perfectionist when you're doing your 4-step. You simply can't. We want to get out the grosser handicaps. And if you're just, for whatever reason, you're not able to do it, give me 10 names of people that you hate, why you hate them. What part of yourself is affected and what's your part? Give me 10 fears. What is the fear? Why do you have the fear? What part of self is affected? What's your part in it, right? The 4th column. And then give me the top 10 that you harmed. One other thing that I did too, I actually, when I did my 5th step with the sponsor that was assigned to me, right? The first thing I did is I got out the top 10 things that were killing me, and I didn't leave anything on the table. I had the top 10 things. I mean, one of them, I got a guy who's dying of liver cancer, right? So he couldn't drink anymore, but he was smoking crack, right? We're smoking crack, and I stole a rock of his crack, right? And then I helped the guy look for it. That was at the top of my list. I had to get that out. It was killing me. The guy's been dead for 10 years, 15 years. What's another one? I mean, breaking my mom's wrist was big. Stealing the stuff from that company was big. The way I treated some women, I got my top 10 things out first. Then I gave them about a 20-minute spiel on my story. And then I kind of ran these columns, right? Because I needed to talk about why I hated these people, right? And I had to kind of show how my hatred was affecting me, right? And then I had to show them what my part was. And then I went through the fears, right? And then I kind of went through the harms. And I mean, again, if you do the 4-step this way, my sponsor, my second sponsor, but the guy that was running Code Blue the first time, he said it should only take 2 hours to do it. And the first 5th step I did with somebody, where I did it, was 2 hours. The second one I did 6 months later only took an hour and a half. Now, I've only heard, so I've done 2, and I've only heard 4, right? I've only heard 4 5th steps of people, because I'm a baby. I've only been sober 5 years, right? I'm a spiritual kindergartner. But all 4 of those were about 2 hours when we did it this way. We do a lot of the work ourselves at home, and most of my resentments, when I saw how stupid they were, 95% of them disappeared. Most of my fears, when I saw how ridiculous they were, most of those disappeared too. And the harms, that's kind of another story, but I needed to get them on paper and look at them. Now, some people, it says in the 12 and 12, some people get a little bit upset by seeing what they've done. If you are a prey to depression, you can also list some good things you do. But you know what? Our assets aren't going to get us drunk. It's our liabilities that are going to get us drunk. That my good things aren't going to get me drunk. It's my bad stuff. So, but if you're depressed, it says in the 12 and 12, you can also list some good things that you've done. So let's see here. I'm just going to... Got a couple more notes here. Let's see if there's anything. Remember, when I first started this 3 weeks ago, if my head's a Quick Trip store and I got a file cabinet full of resentments, damn him, damn her, I'm going to get even with them. God can't get through. I got a display case. It's full of fears. Oh my God, I'm going to get fired. Oh my God, when the bank gets that check. Oh my God, what's she going to do to me? God can't get through that crap either. And I got a storage closet full of guilt, shame, and remorse. I'm the worst son. I'm the worst boyfriend. I'm the worst employee, right? God can't get through that stuff either, right? So if we empty these out, I'm telling you right now, the sunlight of the Spirit can come in. And again, it's a disease of perception. So the resentments are incorrect judgment, the fears are incorrect perceptions, and the harms and hurts are incorrect treatment. And the resentment were killing me, and that just means to re-feel. So after somebody does something bad to you, you go in the next room and you relive that over and over. Then you go home and you relive it over. You wake up in the morning and relive that thing over. That resentment is going to kill you. And every time you play that resentment over, what they did gets worse. What you did gets less, and the harm gets a little bit deeper. And if you play it over and over again, you were just standing there doing nothing when they came and they gave it to you, right? The book tells us we got to get them on paper because we can only see one at a time. I was amazed, man. I had over 100 resentments. I had many, many fears, and of course I had many, many harms. So we're going to find out when we do the resentments, we're not going to worry about what that person did to them or what they did to us. We're going to worry about what the hell that resentment is doing to me. The resentment is killing me, right? We're going to discover that we cannot get angry, we cannot get fearful, we cannot hurt somebody unless one of our basic instincts of life is affected. Our social instinct, right? My status in the community. Somebody threatens that, I'm going to get really angry, or I'm going to get afraid, right? Or I'm going to lash out. My security instinct, what I need to feel safe and secure. Somebody threatens that, I'm going to get really angry. I'm going to be afraid that they're going to take something away, and I'm going to lash out and harm them. My sexual instinct, right? My desire to be with opposite sex. Somebody's messing with that, I'm going to get really angry. I'm going to be afraid that they're going to mess it up, right? So we just get them on. We get them on paper. 95% disappear. The other 5%, right? Work with our sponsor. The ultimate tool, prayer. If you need to see a therapist, by God, see a therapist. That's okay, right? I learned that just about all my fears, again, where I talked about this last week, they're caused by one of the following. I'm not going to get something I want. I'm going to lose something I've got. Or I've done something to another human I shouldn't have, and I'm scared to death they're going to catch me, right? And then I'm going to lose whatever I got anyway. Easy to spot an alcoholic running on self-will rather than God's will, because he's always madder than hell, and he's always scared to death, and he's always hurting other people. If you, like me, man, when I was at the end of my road, can't depend on God, can't depend on other people, and if we're an alcoholic reaching the end of our road, we can't depend on ourselves. We're running absolutely scared to death, and that was me when I did this 4th and 5th step. We get them all on paper. We can only see one at a time. Just by doing the 4th step, right? According to the book. And if you do it according to the book, this is not a list of dirty, rotten things, right? We just want to see the truth. Here's what happened to me just by doing the 4th step. Before I even did the 5th step, I saw how many resentments and fears I had. I saw how they blocked me off from God. I saw that it's not the people that I resented, but rather what they did to me that I resented. I saw that it's not even what they did to me, but it's how I reacted based against a threat against one of my basic instincts. I discovered resentments and fears are a waste of time. And I'm not talking about, fear of falling out of the tree, but, most of the ridiculous ones we have. They paralyze us from doing anything worthwhile. When you're busy being angry and full of fear, you can't get shit done. You can't do it. They never did us any good. They never straightened out relationships, never made us any money. Resentments, fears, and the harms we did never made us feel better, only worse. They block us off from God. We don't feel good. We become insane. And we start to think about, how can I feel good again? We remember about taking a drink. We take a drink and we end up drunk all over again, right? We saw how people and fears have controlled and dominated us through our lives. If I'm angry at somebody who's been dead for 20 years and I still think about how that son of a bitch gave it to me, that guy's still running my life. We see how stupid most of the resentments and fear are. 95% of them disappear automatically. God will not let us have any holes. I used to think when I got rid of this, I wouldn't be a real person anymore. I wouldn't have anything up there. But God replaces these things with the opposite. Where I had resentment, He gives me serenity, peace of mind, some happiness, compassion, love, goodwill. Where I had fear, He gives me faith and courage. Where I had the harms and the hurts I did other people, again, He gives me goodwill. I want to treat people better now. Right? I no longer, because the whole idea is we're not going to be a victim anymore. I no longer say, if they hadn't have done that to me, I wouldn't have to be the way I am today. I'm no longer a victim. We do not have a place in AA for being victims, right? We're adults, and what harmed us in the past should not control what we do today, right? Now the big one. Perhaps we can see that people we're afraid of and people that harmed us are not bad people. They're only sick people, right? They're only sick. Perhaps we can straighten out some relationships while people are still alive. Once people are dead, man, it's too late. Once they're dead, you cannot straighten out the relationships. You can go read a letter at the grave, but that's not the same. Now, when we pray for people to get rid of their resentment, it doesn't mean we take them hand in hand and skip down the path of life. It doesn't mean we approve of what they did. It just means we're going to get rid of that fear and anger that has been controlling us and dominating us, right? This one today, we saw that we use sex for things other than the sex instinct. To build self-esteem, to combat loneliness, for security, for revenge, right? When we do this, we lose the desire to use sex for those purposes, right? We saw what we did to start these things in motion. We have a big part in all of these things and why people retaliate against us, right? We get to see what our wrongs are, resentment, fear, and the harms we've done. We see the exact nature of them. The column 4, dishonest, selfish, self-seeking, frightened, and inconsiderate. Now the good thing is, maybe, just maybe, if I can be a little bit less dishonest, selfish, and self-seeking, right? I'll never be perfect, right? It doesn't say that we got to be perfect. But if I can be less selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, fearful, and inconsiderate, I will not have to hurt and harm people like I've done my whole life. They will not have to retaliate against me, and I will not have to fear and resent, right? So when we do this, guys, we're all set to do our 5th step. We now know the nature of our wrongs that we're going to talk about in step 5. We know the defects of character we're going to become ready to have God remove in step 6. We have the shortcomings we're going to ask God to remove in 7. We have the list of names for steps 8 and 9. The promises come right in the middle of step 9 when we start to clear away the wreckage. Now, this is not scary, right? There's nothing to fear because when you do this, you're going to find that God's starting to give us a kindly and a tolerant view of people, and He's starting to remove fears and show me what He would have me be, right? My guilt, shame, and remorse, I'm the worst person on earth, that starts to be replaced with good conscience, some peace, some serenity, and some happiness. Again, I'm begging people, and I see it. Don't sit around in AA waiting till you get better. You don't have to do your 4-step perfectly. Just get rid of the big ones, right? This is how you get better. Now, the real reason that we want to do this, or the main reason if you're early in sobriety, a person whose mind is filled with resentment, a person whose mind is filled with fear, a person whose mind is filled with guilt, shame, and remorse does not feel good. They feel like crap. And eventually, searching for a way to feel better, right, we begin to think about the ease and comfort that comes from taking just a couple of drinks, not more than 3, maybe just 6, right? We begin to think about that, and then the next thing you know, we go crazy and we think that we can drink safely and we get drunk all over again. So we got to do something about these resentments, these fears, this guilt, shame, and remorse in order to find peace of mind, serenity, and happiness for good long-term sobriety. That's why we're doing it. And this is the beginning. This is the big one. This sets up all of the action steps. That's why we've got to do this. So, that's it for today, unless anybody's got any questions on anything. Again, I'm a rookie at this, but guys, I can tell you, the people that I've sponsored that have done this, man, they're out now. They're out sponsoring other people, and it's working. If you do this and they stay sober, if you get to this and you say, I don't think I want to do it, those are the people, maybe they're sober, maybe they're dry. I don't know if they're dry drunks, but I never see them again, if they're not willing to do it. This is the start of everything. This is so freaking important. Any questions at all? Yes.
One of the reasons I didn't want to do a 4th step is the 5th step. I didn't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yep.
After living for my whole life in the space of what if anybody ever found out
Yes.
all the stuff I did.
Yep.
What if just living in that fear, I didn't want to face that. So what happens? What happens when you hear a 5th step? Or what is it like?
Well, it's
to deflate some of that. 'Cause it's not bad.
It's not bad, and it's you did one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were afraid. Just tell everybody what happened when you did it. What happened?
I sobbed in the car the whole way to my sponsor's house.
Okay.
I just didn't go. But then she listened, just peacefully listened, and when I said certain things, I thought, I never wanted to tell anyone. She said I did that.
Yep.
Or she did something worse. I stepped in and had empathy for what I was sharing.
Excellent.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
And it was what helped me break through.
Yeah.
Break through to have a relationship with a higher power. I couldn't do it before that.
You see, man, you get it out, and all of a sudden God can come in, and that's why this is so important. And I mean, it made a searching and fearless moral inventory. Fearless doesn't mean that we don't have fear. It means that we walk through the fear. We have enough faith that we are going to, just enough belief that it's going to work, that we walk through the fear. When we do that, then we get the faith. That was wonderful. I mean, for me, basically the same thing. I mean, I didn't have the fear that you had, but I mean, I was sure that oh my God, this person he's gonna know that I'm the lousiest man on earth, right? He's gonna know that when we're done. But I was assured that it's all confidential, and I mean, I tell you what, they're just there to listen. They're there to nod their head. And quite frankly, 3 weeks later, they ain't going to remember it anyway, because I don't. I mean, my memory's not that good. I don't remember everything. I mean, and of course, that somebody that's walked this walk before, that nobody is gonna go out and tell anybody else about it. Now, if you're worried about that, maybe, some people have talked to their lawyer, but I really believe it's got to be somebody in AA, because like when your sponsor, oh my God, I did that and I did worse. That's what these guys told me. Everything I did, these guys had me beat tenfold, man. So I mean, it wasn't so big, and I got everything out, even the stuff I thought there was no coming back, no forgiveness for what I've done. God's never going to forgive me. I might as well drink now. My sponsor did worse, and again, God sees what we're trying to do here, and we're trying to change our lives, and ultimately we're going to try to be going out and helping other people. We're helping other people now. Just by sharing at meetings, we're helping other people. So, there's absolutely not, I know I can tell you there's nothing to be afraid of, and that may or may not help you, but we got to do it. We got to walk through our fear. And when you're doing this, don't worry about any future steps. That's a big one. Just do this one, right? We don't have to think about what's coming next. Just get this get this one done. So important. And again, it's just an hour and a half. And I guarantee you, everybody that you have, they're just gonna listen. They're gonna empathize, and that's it. I'm gonna talk about the fifth step next week. But one thing, my sponsor did and I did. There's the person. There's me. One guy uses an empty chair to symbolize God. I really like a candle, and you light that candle, and that candle symbolizes the presence of God there to help us. And but we'll get the fifth step instructions next week. We got about maybe just not more than an hour next week. It's just going to be on the fifth step, some instructions and what you can expect. And then any time between Tuesday to Tuesday, I'm begging you guys, from all my heart to please do this. And if you don't have a sponsor, talk to me, talk to somebody. We'll find you somebody, just somebody that's willing to listen for an hour and a half. It's not a big deal. So, all right, man. Let's end with the step 3 prayer, third step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Peace.